Imagine being 19 years old, standing almost completely alone, while 6 enemy tanks and waves of infantry come straight toward you. Your men are falling back. Your cover is disappearing. And beside you, a tank destroyer is burning. So hot and unstable, it could explode at any second. Most people would run. Audie Murphy climbed onto that burning wreck, grabbed the .50 caliber machine gun, and fought anyway. Exposed, outnumbered, and surrounded by gunfire. He held that position for an hour, and the enemy got so close, they were within 10 yards. Now here's the part that sounds impossible. He didn't just survive. He didn't just hold the line. When his ammunition was finally gone and he was wounded in the leg, he made his way back to his company, refused medical attention, reorganized his men, and led a counterattack that pushed the enemy back. So how does a kid from rural Texas, too young, too small, and rejected at first, become the man whose courage literally saved his company from being destroyed? Stay with me, because the real story isn't just about a battlefield. It's about what it costs to stand when everything in you is begging you to break. Audie Murphy's legend is not simply war hero does something unbelievable. It's the story of a human being shaped by hardship long before the war ever found him. He grew up without comfort, without guarantees, and without a safety net. He learned responsibility early, and when the world caught fire, he didn't wait to feel ready. He moved forward anyway. That's what makes his story hit so hard, because the bravery people celebrate usually starts as something much quieter: endurance, stubbornness, and the refusal to quit. When the United States entered World War II, Murphy tried to enlist and got turned away. Too young, underweight, not what the military was looking for at first glance. But he kept coming back, not because he wanted glory, because he wanted to serve, and because he couldn't accept being left behind while others went. Eventually, he made it into the US Army, and then the war started carving his name into history the hard way, one fight at a time. He became known as someone who showed up when it mattered, someone who didn't freeze when things went wrong, someone who stayed in the fight longer than anyone should have to. By January 1945, the fighting in France was brutal, cold, and desperate. Near a place called Holtzwihr, Murphy was serving with Company B, 1st Battalion, 15th Infantry Regiment, 3rd Infantry Division, and on January 26, 1945, everything came down on them at once. The enemy attacked with 6 tanks and waves of infantry. It was the kind of moment that turns organized plans into pure survival in seconds. Murphy did what real leadership looks like in the first heartbeat of chaos. He ordered his men to withdraw to prepared positions in the woods. He gave them the best chance to live, and then he stayed forward at his command post to keep directing artillery fire by telephone, trying to slow the attack and buy time. Then the battlefield turned even uglier. One of the American tank destroyers nearby took a direct hit and began to burn. The crew abandoned it and ran for cover. And Murphy, still forward, still exposed, kept directing artillery. The citation says the artillery fire killed large numbers of the advancing enemy infantry, but the tanks kept coming. The pressure didn't stop. And in that moment, Murphy made a decision that sounds like madness until you understand what was at stake. With enemy tanks abreast of his position, he climbed onto the burning tank destroyer, knowing it could blow up at any moment, and used its .50 caliber machine gun against the enemy. He was alone, exposed to German fire from 3 sides, and still he stayed up there. His fire killed dozens of Germans and caused the infantry attack to waver. Without infantry support, the enemy tanks began to fall back. But the attack didn't end, because for an hour, the Germans tried everything they had to eliminate him. Think about that. 1 hour is not a flash of courage. 1 hour is sustained terror. 1 hour is your muscles screaming, your throat dry from smoke, your mind racing with the knowledge that you are a visible target and you could die any second. And according to the citation, the enemy got as close as 10 yards. 10 yards. That's not distant history. That's close enough to see faces, close enough to hear movement, close enough to feel how thin the line is between life and the end. During that stand, Murphy received a leg wound. He ignored it. He continued the single-handed fight until his ammunition was exhausted. And when it finally was, when the gun went quiet and most people would collapse, crawl away, or finally accept help, Murphy did something even harder than firing that weapon. He went back to his company. He refused medical attention. And he organized his men for a counterattack that forced the Germans to withdraw. His actions, directing artillery, holding that position, and then leading the counterattack, saved his company from possible encirclement and destruction, and enabled them to hold the woods the enemy was trying to take. If you want the truth of what the Medal of Honor really represents, it's right there. Not a perfect man, not a superhero, a human being who decided that the ground behind him, where his friends were, was not going to be surrendered. Later, when asked why he did what he did, a simple answer is often repeated: they were killing his friends. That line cuts deep because it's not poetic, it's not polished, it's just the raw logic of loyalty under fire. After the war, America turned him into a legend. He became famous, celebrated, recognized. He later acted in films and even played himself in a movie based on his experiences, To Hell and Back. But the story doesn't end when the shooting stops, because surviving a war and living with what you saw are two different battles. Murphy struggled with what we now recognize as PTSD, then often called battle fatigue. People saw the medals. They didn't always see the nights. They didn't always see the weight. That doesn't reduce what he did. It makes it real. Because the highest courage isn't clean, and it doesn't always come with peace afterward. So when you hear the name Audie Murphy, don't just think most decorated or Medal of Honor. Think about the moment in France when a 19-year-old lieutenant climbed onto a burning tank destroyer, alone and exposed, while 6 tanks and waves of infantry came forward, and he refused to give an inch. Not because he felt fearless, but because he understood what would happen if he didn't stand. Audie Murphy's story is proof that bravery is not the absence of fear. It's choosing to act while fear is screaming in your ear. If you want a part 2 about what happened after the war, how fame followed him, what To Hell and Back meant, and the hidden cost of being called a hero, comment Audie and I'll make it next.